Storytime with Stephanie Storey.
Hi, I am art historical novelist Stephanie Storey. Welcome to my show, Storytime. My guest today is a Nashville recording artist, also from my hometown of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And his hit single, Promise to Love Her, he wrote for his wife for his wedding day, and then it went like crazy viral and has gotten all kinds of views. So we're going to talk about that. It was on like a CMT top list for like 17 consecutive weeks or something insane. I'm very excited to talk to him about songwriting and Nashville and Arkansas and all kinds of things. Welcome to the show, Blane Howard.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a heck of an intro.
Oh, good. I hope that's a good thing. Heck, I think that's a positive thing, so I'll take it. Okay, so I'm also from Hot Springs. So we both grew up in the same town. I ended up going to college in Nashville. I went to Vanderbilt University. But ended up heading out to LA to follow my stuff out in Hollywood. You ended up in Nashville. When you were a kid growing up, it was like shocking to me that people ever left Hot Springs and did anything out in other places. Did you have that same kind of feeling, or who were your inspirations to leave Hot Springs and go off and do other things?
There was a little bit of that. I think when I graduated, there were maybe 3 or 4 kids that even left the state for college. So 3 out of 260 something, just in one class. Like it wasn't very popular thing to do. So yeah, it was a little weird being one of those few that was going to leave town, but I don't know. I got it in my head probably my junior year of high school that Nashville's kind of where I wanted to be. And once I decided that I was going there, there wasn't really anything stopping me. And I didn't really, not that I didn't care where my friends were going. I was very interested in their lives, but my friends' choices weren't going to affect mine and where I was going. So.
Okay, so did you know you wanted to go to Nashville because you knew you wanted to be a songwriter? You knew you wanted to be a recording artist? You knew you wanted to do country? Like is that why Nashville was so in your head?
Definitely. I always enjoyed singing and stuff like that. And when I was really little, I wanted to be Alan Jackson. That was like the ultimate thing for me. So when I was in high school, I think I decided one day that I wanted to try, performing and singing as a career. And so I figured, if it was country music, which is what I grew up and it's just what I naturally sing, that was the place to be. So Nashville was kind of it. And we started doing a little bit of research. Is there a college path there, or do we just move to town and start writing songs or learn to play guitar or whatever it may be? And one of my best friends in high school, his cousin went to Belmont, and she just happened to say, oh, he likes, like, if he's interested in music and stuff like that and music business, he should check out Belmont. And I took one visit, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, Belmont is, for those of you at home who are not familiar with Nashville, Belmont is one of the greatest music universities in the country, and it happens to be in Nashville, and it's where so many of my musical friends went to go to college and start following their path. So in high school, you decide you want to be, maybe you're going to go perform. When did you actually start writing your own music?
I wrote occasionally in college, but like I said, going into college, I never really played an instrument. So I was kind of teaching myself guitar as I went along. Really was just like a cheap chord sheet poster that I put on my wall freshman year. And my poor roommate, who was a guitar major, probably wanted to kill me. But that's just kind of how I taught myself. And, I knew that I had to do that if I wanted to be able to kind of perform and write songs with country music. We were also required to play and pass some piano courses in college. So I've written a little bit with piano, but guitar is kind of something that I always, kind of lean towards. And never really, I would write some in college, but nothing that I wanted to share with people, because you come to school and all these kids have been playing guitar since they were 8 years old or playing whatever instrument it is. And they've been writing music and have all this experience. And I'd never even played in a band or anything in high school. So yeah, it wasn't really something that was popular among students in high school. There were a few bands that would get together and jam on classic rock, or a few punk bands and things like that, but nothing that I wanted to be involved with, at least. So when I got to Belmont, I was one of the few that didn't actually play an instrument.
You have to have been sort of overwhelmed by that at Belmont. Did that not get in your head? Oh my gosh, what am I doing? Did it get in your head?
I had a few moments for sure. in like up through the audition process of like, I've never even taken like any type of music theory courses. They weren't even offered at our high school. Like, I don't know how to, like, if someone hands me a piece of sheet music, I can't tell you what key it's in. I don't know how to do that. And so I had a few freak out moments. And then I got to Belmont and realized that there were a lot of kids that were in the same boat as me. Yes, there were a bunch that knew exactly what they were doing, but for the most part, you know, the majority of them were in a similar boat to me. And then there were always people that, you know, played guitar and were learning guitar while they were there as well. So I never really started performing with the guitar until after college, which is when I got comfortable enough with the guitar is when I got comfortable enough to kind of perform my own like songs that I'd written.
When was that moment for you when you decided, okay, I'm good enough? Because like it took me, I've been writing every day since I was 7, right? But it took me a really long time to figure out that, okay, I'm good enough to be able to send novels out into the world and have them published and have other people read them. When did you, do you remember what that moment was for you in songwriting when you were like, okay, I might be able to actually do this?
I don't remember a specific moment. There's kind of like a chunk of time from like the summer of like 2010 after I graduated where I remember, I think it was, I'm not used to this whole songwriting thing. So I need to do some co-writing and write with other people and kind of see how the process plays out. How am I compared to them as a songwriter? And they can give me some feedback on stuff like that. And if maybe we write a song and they're excited about it too, that'll kind of get the wheels turning of, okay, I've got something going here. And so when I graduated, probably that summer, 2010 is when I really started co-writing a lot. And I had probably 3 or 4 songs that I thought were pretty good and the co-writers thought were pretty good. And so that's when I thought, okay, maybe I can actually find a producer and get these produced and things like that and maybe put them on some type of EP or CD or whatever to like kind of sell to people. And that was kind of what got the ball rolling there.
Okay, so do you consider the first big hit Promise to Love Her your first big hit? Or do you have something before then that you're like, no,
on a large scale, yes, but my first single that I put out was a song that's actually on the EP that I put out 2013, but I put it out fall of 2011, I believe. It was called She's a Mess, and I performed that, being from Hot Springs, you'll know this, at Magic Springs at the Timberwood Amphitheater there. The summer before, I had opened for Joe Nichols and didn't have any original music. So I was borrowing songs from friends and things like that. So I wasn't just being the cover band guy up there playing 6 songs that everybody knew. And so the next summer I had She's a Mess and I performed that opening for Blake Shelton there. And being able to do that in front of 10,000 people or however many people were there that day, it was a massive crowd. Kind of gave me the confidence that, okay, nobody is booing this song. They seem to be liking it. My friends that are here seem to be liking it. So maybe this is, maybe what I'm doing and what I'm writing is pretty good. So just, again, kept the ball rolling from there. And as you know, the more you write, the better you get. And sometimes you write an idea and it doesn't quite come out the way you want. So the more you kind of circle back around to it, you find a better way to write it.
Tell us the story of how you wrote Promise to Love, because you wrote it for your now wife.
I did. So we were getting married. I came up with the idea after we got engaged. So, a lot of musicians and songwriters will write a song for their wife or their spouse or for some type of occasion. And sometimes they're great and sometimes they're not. But it was just something that I wanted to try. I was like, if I can do this and it's great, great. If it turns out crappy and I don't like it, then I don't ever have to give it to her. But we'll just see if an idea comes along. And I had this idea come along that you're saying promise to love her to 3 different people. You're saying it to her father when you ask for her hand, you say it to the preacher at the wedding, and then you say it to the doctor at the hospital when he brings in your baby girl. I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea. Let's see if I can maybe figure this out a little bit. And I had a co-write scheduled with a friend of mine from college named Jordan Reynolds, who now has gone on to write 4 or 5 number ones and big songs for Dan and Shay. And now he just recently wrote the 10,000 Hours that they did with Justin Bieber. So very successful songwriter in town. And so took it to him, and he'd just recently been married as well. So we were both kind of in the same headspace. And that's just kind of what came out. It was just telling the story of me literally driving 500 miles to Camden, Arkansas to ask her dad for permission to marry her. And the rest of it just kind of went from there. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I think we wrote it in about an hour and a half, did a quick little piano demo at his like a little home studio. And that was it. Didn't even really talk about it until the day of the wedding. No one knew it existed until the morning of the wedding, except for me and Jordan.
That's extraordinary to write something that fast, write it for your wife, which is a beautiful story. And then you're giving it to her for a wedding, and that's amazing. But then it goes out into the world, and a lot of other people, tens of millions of people connect to this song.
Yeah.
One, how does that feel when you're writing something that's so personal and you're putting out in the world and other people are attaching themselves to it? But also, I'm just stuck on that. You write it in an hour and a half, and then it sort of changes your world. That's mind-blowing to me because, again, I write novels. They take years, not hours.
Sometimes songwriting is that way. Like I've had songwriting sessions where something literally comes out in 45 minutes to an hour. And then I've had sessions where you're working on it for 3 sessions of 3 hours each and it still doesn't come out right. So that's just how it kind of works sometimes. And that day, I guess, I don't know, everything kind of lined up on that one. Like I said, we were both kind of in the same headspace. And it was very emotional for me because it was something personal from me. I knew it was going to go to my wife. So it was emotional in that aspect. It was kind of hard to even sing it for a while. And then, like I said, gave it to her on the morning of the wedding. It wasn't supposed to be anything more than a gift. And then I think my uncle got some grainy cell phone video of part of the song. And somebody like posted it to Facebook. We were already on our honeymoon and like we're getting messages through my Facebook page saying, oh my gosh, I have to have this song for my wedding. I'm getting married on Saturday. I'm like, I'm in the Caribbean. Like, what am I supposed to do? But I was able to like find it in an email and email it to this couple that was getting married that weekend. And so that's kind of when I thought maybe this is going to be more than just something personal and a gift. And obviously it has been. It's been used in I don't know how many weddings, hundreds that I know of. We did contests where you could win me to come sing at the wedding and stuff like that. I have flown. Let's see. I've been to Florida. I've been to Long Island, New York. I've been to Monterey, California. I've been to Chicago. I've been to Texas. I've been literally across the entire country singing this song for people either at weddings or, you know, a reception or whatever it may be. It's taken me everywhere. And, you know, if COVID holds off and disappears in time, I'll be going out of country to do it this summer as well, which is pretty cool, going international. So that's kind of cool. But it's just, it blows me away continually. It was something that I never even expected to be anything other than just something of a memory. And now it's been streamed 75 million times or so. It's insane.
And I mean, I know from, you know, I receive fan mail and I go do the speeches all across the country. And I did the international thing back in 2016. It's very exciting. I hope people can do it. But to have it be a part of other people's life story, something you wrote because they're including it in the biggest moment of their life. Is that exciting or is that daunting?
It's incredibly exciting. I get messages all the time from people via Instagram and Facebook and Twitter just saying, can you come sing the wedding or whatever, all the way down to just thank you so much for writing the song. This song means so much to us. And I always ask them to send us their videos if they have it, if it's a first dance or a ceremony or whatever it may be, because I like to see it personally, but it's also fun to share their story. So if they're okay with it, I'll post it to social media and say, here's another couple this weekend and whatever that used it. And it's just great because so many people out there, it's a way for them to see it. It's a way for them to connect with those people, but it's also personal for me because it's something that I made from just me and my wife that now means so much to somebody else.
After my first novel, which was surprisingly people read, you know, which is not supposed to happen when it's your first book, it freaked me out for a moment. And I got like in my head about, how am I going to live up to expectations? What am I going to do? Did you have any of that after this song that you wrote for yourself, totally personal, and then it goes crazy? did it make you go, or if you totally leaned into it and been good with it?
There's definitely, I don't want to say pressure, but you feel a little bit of anxiety about what if every song that I write after this is never this good, and this is just like a one-time thing, and this is all people ever really care about, which if it is, great, whatever. But there's definitely some of that anxiety there. And it's been weird for me too, because I haven't put out new music really since Promise came out in 2017, mostly because, not because I didn't have the songs or anything like that, it was just Promise kept, it would grow, and then we'd get to a point where, okay, time for new music, and then all of a sudden something else would happen. So it was like, well, now we've got to continue to build this momentum off of Promise. And then I finally get new music ready, and COVID hits. And then not just the world shut down, but the music industry completely shut down. No live performances, nobody's signing new artists, nobody's signing new writers, nobody has any acts to promote because there's no venues that are taking acts. They can't fit crowds in. So everything's just kind of been at a standstill.
How have you handled not being able to perform? Have you done any online performing? Have you done anything that's sort of adjusted like that? What's been happening?
A little bit. I had a song that I had recorded a couple of years ago that I did put out in April, it's called Keep Me Busy, and it was literally just to keep people busy during the lockdown. Because I hadn't put out music in a while, and nobody was really doing anything. All the shows that we had scheduled had been canceled. So that kind of at least had a little bit of that. I've done some Facebook Live stuff, but we had some shows hoping that like September, October, maybe everything will start opening up, and then you get to a certain point and those start canceling. So we kind of expected at a certain point that it's probably going to be middle of 2021 for live shows and things like that. But as far as keeping occupied, my wife and I had a baby in April, which has obviously taken up a lot of our time for this year. So as terrible as it's been not to be able to work and perform and travel and meet new fans and see old fans and all that stuff, the silver lining to 2020 has been how much time we've been able to spend with our daughter. My wife's been working from home, so she's been here most of the time. Even if she's working, she still gets to see her throughout the day. I would have been gone probably for 75 to 100 shows this year, traveling. Who knows what I would have missed. So, there's a lot of things that aren't really big milestones in your entire life, but as like having a baby, like she rolls over or she does something new all the time. And it's stuff that I probably would have missed if I hadn't actually had all these shows canceled.
That's a nice thing. I mean, we don't hear a lot of things that you go, oh, maybe that is a silver lining to all of this. One other thing I have to ask you about, so you've been an independent artist thus far in your career, right?
Yes.
Can you give my viewers at home who listen to music on the radio, they don't know anything, what is it like to work in the music industry these days? Give us a little bit of an overview of what it's like to be an independent artist out there pushing your stuff and trying to get it sold and trying to book the events and all this stuff.
Right. So, if there was a label involved, which hopefully, in the future there will be, if that's what turns out. If not, we'll figure out some way to keep going without it. But labels have access to radio promotion money and booking agents and putting you on tours with lots of people and easy ways to gain social media followers, gain fans, get your music out to a bunch of different people and help make you and them money. You don't really have that when it comes to being an independent artist, unless you're at the very, very top level where you're some type of major Texas act or a Chance the Rapper type person who starts that way and then maybe gets there eventually. But streaming helps a little bit because you can anybody can put a song on there and it's accessible to everyone. It has to be good enough and you have to be able to have enough people listening to it to where it catches on to certain playlists. So that's tough. Labels also have access to those, which independent artists don't always have. So that can be really tough. Cold calling venues. I've done a lot of that. And then had, people that have joined the team and helped. And it's a lot of that where you're cold calling, and most of the time, if it's a bar venue in a town you've never heard of, sometimes the main bartender is also their booking agent and they're trying to do both. So it's hard to get through to someone. And then, it's a 10-hour drive and you have to weigh the costs of okay, they're only guaranteeing us this much money if we put a tip jar out, or we have, tickets at the door. How many people have to come in before we break even? I'm hiring 3 musicians or 4 musicians to travel with me. That's their pay per show going out for that. Plus, if we're staying somewhere and we need a hotel room or 2, driving and pulling a trailer and paying for gas $200 every trip is a lot too. So it starts adding up really quickly to where, it's hard to just break even on some of these shows. So it's either you stay out for weeks at a time and you run the margins really small every time, or you try and find a bigger show like a fair or festival or a private gig or something that pays pretty well. And then you can run 3 or 4 shows off of that to where you might break even on those. So at least you've had these multiple shows, you've gotten out there to other venues and other fans and things like that. So that part's really tough. Radio promotion's not cheap. So if I wanted to pay for that on my own, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars just to get it to small market stations that don't even report to Billboard and things like that. So that's where streaming comes in handy. Obviously, streamers don't pay a lot for songwriters. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that stuff in the news as well, but that at least allows you to get to everyone's pocket or household very, very easily via Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it may be. But if you're out there and you have an independent artist that you like, download the song. If you don't want to pay $10 or whatever for the whole album, usually when you download a song, pay $1.29, the artist is getting $1 of that. So that's a pretty good margin when it comes to other stuff. So if it were a label involved, they wouldn't be getting as much of that. So that's one way you can help with that type stuff. Just, streaming always helps, and it's great to get fractions of a penny every time someone plays it. It's better than nothing, but downloading the song can help quite a bit too. So
I had no idea. It's those kinds of things that when you're not in the industry, you don't realize it. Like my view of the book industry changed so much when I got into it. You start realizing the little things that really make a huge difference. And hawking music sounds a lot like hawking books, by the way.
Very similar. Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, I'm sure.
Okay, but speaking of that, so I know why out of all of the difficulty of putting it all together and everything you just listed off that you have to do as a musician in order to make it work, what is it that you love about it so much that you keep doing it?
Singing's just always made me happy. I can't really explain why. It's just always something that's made me happy. I've been pissed off at halftime of a high school football game and just left the locker room and gone outside and just sat by myself and sang to kind of calm myself down, things like that. So it's just something that, it's something that's always made me happy and stuff like that. So why not find a way, or hopefully find a way, to make a living at doing something that makes you happy. So
Story time with Stephanie. Story time virtually. We've got time and plenty of stories, talking stories in a novel way. Story time with Stephanie. Story.